All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, welcome to today's webinar on English communication skills and employability. This is Sophie, I'm the PD manager here at English Australia. I'm going to introduce today's speaker, Catherine Moore. Catherine's an ELT consultant and she works for ETS TOEFL in the area of professional development. Kath's a regular presenter at the English Australia Conference, and last year in Adelaide at the conference, she presented a World Cafe session on this same topic, English communication skills and employability. So thanks for coming back and presenting for us today, Catherine.
It's my pleasure. So as Sophie has said, we did do a World Cafe on English communication skills and employability. So this session will build on some of that, and it will also build on some sessions that I've been doing with students in both language institutions and a variety of universities around Australia. So as everyone knows, employability seems to be a very big thing or buzzword these days. But what we're focusing on specifically is the English communication skills aspect of that. So I'm just going to go to my slides. Yep. All right, so before we start, I just want to give an outline of the things that I'm going to cover. And as we go through the webinar, there are a number of questions that I'll pose. Some of them, well, the majority of them were sent in the little blurb for the webinar. And what I would hope is that I'll pose the question and then give time for people to put some comments in the chat function, and Sophie will share those with us. So firstly, to outline what we're going to talk about this afternoon, these are the areas that we're going to cover. Firstly, what employers are looking for, then why English communication skills matter to employers, and that will incorporate some employer expectations, why English communication skills matter to students, and how we can assist students to develop communication skills, English communication skills. And also I'll be talking through, as we do the presentation, some resources, and people may have resources that they'd like to share as well. So, okay. My first question is, when employers are actually talking about English communication skills, what do you think they mean? So if you can please post your comments in the chat box. I'll just give you a minute or so to do that. And while you're doing that, I think this machine may have jumped a slide, so I might go back a slide if I can. Okay, yep.
Okay, so if you have any comments about the question, just type them into the chat box.
So while you're doing that, the slide that I skipped accidentally was from Careers Outlook, which is a survey that's was done until 2015. It doesn't seem to be done recently. When employers are asked what are the most important selection criteria when they're looking at new graduates, 58.3% say interpersonal and communication skills. And then looking at their least desirable attributes, 24.5% say poor oral communication and 21.5% say poor communication generally in terms of both mainly oral and writing skills. So, as I said, that question
Okay.
When they're talking about communication skills, what do they actually mean, do you think?
So we have a couple of answers that have come through. Someone said the ability to work together in groups, to negotiate outcomes and solve problems. Someone else has said presentation skills. Email and report writing skills. Communication skills in this context refer to the ability to communicate ideas clearly across a range of settings, both formal and informal.
Okay, that's great.
Someone has said, someone has sort of mentioned that intelligibility is important in speaking. Yep, and that clarity in reports and emails is important.
Okay, so that's great because you've looked at both tasks that our employers are looking at and different contexts that people may be working in. And we'll be looking at, in terms of employer expectations, some research around the tasks that employers do require their new employees to be undertaking, and you've covered quite a few of those already. One of the key points I want to raise is that when employers talk about English communication skills, they're not talking about an English language test score. So on my slide here, I've got communication skills versus English proficiency. And sometimes that can be a challenge for students when they're looking for employment where it has a base level that you're required to reach. So for example, for accounting, if you're going for one of the big four, they ask for the equivalent of IELTS 8 in one of the 4 language proficiency tests. So if a student applies for that job and they have that, they don't understand why they don't automatically meet the criteria of having great communication skills. So on this slide, I'm looking at a couple of things related to why communication skills matter to employers. So one of the things is, as we know, that good communication skills are actually the foundation of many other employer requirements, which people just raised, like working in groups, leadership, problem solving, and for all of those things, good communication skills are required. And that is not encapsulated necessarily in just meeting a certain criteria of a certain number of points on a particular test. And the other area that often students are not as proficient in is that area of non-work related communication, which relates to intercultural competence, understanding and being able to function socially, as well as understanding the technical language for a particular profession. One of the, an example here I've actually taken off a Sydney University website, which has resources about what employers are looking for. And a good resource when you're looking at how to incorporate English language skills for universities, for students in English language courses, whether it's for graduates or for students looking for part-time work, getting work experience. A lot of universities have amazing resources related to employability in general. So this is a question that was asked of an employer. What are the generic attributes required in an employee and why are these important? So the response there, again, communication skills, active listening and understanding, and then someone who has the confidence and therefore is willing to question things, is innovative and can think for themselves. So key, again, is communication skills. This slide here shows business costs of poor English proficiency. And this is a slide I often use with students, and I actually ask them what is the cost of poor English communication skills in their own specific profession. And they come up with a lot of these points as well. So I'll just give you a little bit of time to have a look at that. I won't read through it. But as you can see there, the things that are problems are related to, so we've got cultural insensitivity. So that's having cultural competence, misunderstandings. Again, that could be a language skill. It also could be not having that strategic competence to actually recognise where communication has broken down and knowing how to repair that. And again, when you look around there, it's like there's a lot of miscommunication, poor customer service. So having sociolinguistic competence, so a whole range of aspects are incorporated in English language communication. And there are a lot of the things that we do as English language practitioners and in language centres. I'd like to move on just briefly to some research on employer expectations. So here I'm going to look at some research, and there are references at the end of the slides which will be available after the presentation as part of the recording of the webinar. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sophie?
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So, so I'm just briefly highlighting what research has shown that employers are expecting of graduates. So at the moment, I'm just talking about students who have completed degrees and then are applying for a graduate position. I'm looking at 3 professions, just to give a contrast. So the first professions are accountants and engineers. So in terms of the tasks, as people have said, emails, one of the main things that I guess all of us probably know that we do in everyday life anyway in our jobs is write and respond to emails for a range of purposes, including following up from spoken interaction. So knowing how to handle the register of how you communicate with the client externally, how you communicate with your boss, how you communicate with a colleague. The other things that they're employers saying that they need is accuracy, obviously, in terms of content and grammar. The next slide, oops, I think I've jumped, sorry, there's a bit of a delay here and I get a bit excited and click twice, so I'm just going to try and go back again. Okay, the next thing for accountants and engineers is report writing. So often for accountants or within organisations, templates are used. So an organisation will have the culture of what they use, how they set out their reports. Some of those might actually be tender documents. Bullet points would be involved. And one of the keys here is that they're constructed by teams. So there needs to be good oral communication in terms of communicating with teams about what aspect of the report is written on so that there's flow, and the skills that are needed there are outlined. And often students notice that what the employers are looking for and what they're learning once they're in university can be quite different. So for example, brevity is valued, whereas sometimes at university you're required to do an assignment maybe about 3,000 words and you're able to get it finished in 2,000 words, but you know you have to meet the word limit, so you just keep talking or writing. And that's not valued by an employer. They want things that are concise and to the point. I wanted to look at health professionals because it's quite different, and particularly in speaking skills, it can show you the range of things that to be an efficient communicator in the health profession, the challenges that may face students who are moving into those professions. This writing skills values was based on research that was done on what doctors value in handover documentation. And it is quite challenging because the way they described what they valued was, as you can see there, things that are appropriate. So they want it to be concise but sufficient. So to the point, but enough information, but they couldn't actually sort of quantify what conciseness and sufficiency was. So there's key information present, but no relevant information. Then the next thing is clarity, which obviously is related to grammatical accuracy, the way things are presented, and that can vary, again, from workplace to workplace. In terms of spoken communication, these are the skills that are valued, and it's not just speaking, it's approach to a client. So with health professionals, there are a range of audiences. You've got the patient, you've got the professionals that you're dealing with, so the healthcare team. You've also got the family of the client. So the approach and the manner and techniques in interaction and communication vary for each of those groups. And then on top of that, you've got the social aspects of just generally communicating with your colleagues as well in an appropriate way. And the way you communicate with a doctor if you're a nurse compared to how you communicate with another member of the nursing team, to other paraprofessionals. So there's a whole range of things that are involved in there. And clearly that's covered also in the courses when students are studying that. This is just some dot points about the speaking skills that are valued by health professionals. So if you're interested in these specific areas, I would refer you to the research that is referenced at the end of the documentation, because there is some really useful things that can be incorporated into an academic skills program or in highlighting for students as they're heading towards university the importance of constantly and continuing to develop their language skills. So as you can see, speaking skills that are valued contains a huge amount of things. So manner is really important. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to read through that rather than read through it for you, and then I have another question. Okay, so my focus in looking at employer expectations there has been with graduate students. It can also, so students, as we know, are on a journey. We might have them at the beginning of their language journey, or they might be working holiday students, so they might be looking to develop language skills in order to get part-time work as they're travelling around Australia, so they need to know how to develop those skills in order to get employment, or they might be seeking to be involved in work integrated learning or an internship or a range of different things as part of their learning experience. So my question here is, what is the role of the English Language Centre in developing communication skills for employability? So again, if you can post your comments in the chat box, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and then Sophie will share.
Okay, so we have quite a few that have come through. teaching soft skills, helping students to understand the expectations, and providing students the tools to improve these skills even outside the classroom. Practice in the classroom, delineating the skills required, providing opportunities to develop the skills, providing feedback on progress, creating links between class tasks and employment. That's it for now.
Okay, that's great. You've pretty much covered my next slide. I think understanding and being aware of expectations is really key. Obviously that didn't work. Where's my little button here? Try again.
Someone's also mentioned guest presenters as examples.
Yes, okay. All right, so I think dealing with expectations and having realistic expectations is very important. What I've written here is that it's a process, not a subject, a course and an event. And I think the person who said that giving them the tools to continue to develop their English language skills outside the classroom, I think that is really important. I do a lot of work with students who are in the last semester of their degree and then wanting to access post-study work rights, and also trying to sit a language test and provide and organise resumes and all of those kinds of things. And they suddenly realise that they haven't actually taken that opportunity over the course of their study to develop language skills. They've really worked hard on developing their technical skills, and they will ask really simple questions. So they'll be in their final semester and say, well, how do I improve my speaking? I'm not very good at speaking to people. I'm not very good at understanding people. And they're all the skills that they had learned right at the beginning, but they haven't seen the importance of it until they're suddenly applying for jobs and thinking, oh, whoops. Again, as somebody said, make explicit the importance of skills taught in class and the ongoing development of communication skills. And I think, as that person said too, the transferability. So the skills that you're doing and the transferability and the resources that are around. So that is really important. We're going to talk a little bit later about strategies and what is being done and what other suggestions that you have as well, because I think it's really important to be able to share. And I know in a webinar there are sometimes it's a little bit more challenging because you can't actually see the people that you're communicating with, but hopefully through the resource here you're able to get some ideas and maybe connect with people who are doing work that you can maybe partner with or get some ideas from. Okay. It's a very good exercise in patience, the delay of these slides. Okay. So for students, one of the questions I said was we were going to also look at why communication skills matter to students, and it's fairly self-evident. Students want to find employment here or overseas, and it might be part-time employment, it might be working holiday, it might be as a step to work integrated learning or to an internship, and the other area might be for graduate career opportunities. For those who are wanting to do those things, as we said that in the previous slide, many students focus on developing their technical skills, but not general communication skills. So they might have evidence of English language proficiency, but then they have challenges obtaining employment. And the process of developing communication skills does enrich the student experience. And these are things that are evident to us, but we need to keep them in the forefront of our students' minds, even at the beginning in ELICOS. by developing communication skills, they are improving their cultural capital, they're improving their confidence. One thing that I want to focus on here is a resource, which I would actually show you, except I can't. It's at the end of the slides. There are a number of resources that were produced by IEAA, the International Education Association of Australia, and I think it was in 2015. There was an employability symposium, and what came out of that were a number of documents. One was an outcomes report, one was an international employability guide for students, so it steps out the different things that they should be doing over the process of their studies. It also has a good practice guide for Australian education providers. And recently, there is a document that's been produced for employers. So the International Student Employability Guide has some really good resources for students that could be used as part of reading or just as a resource for students. But the other thing that has been produced, which is really, I think, useful, is there are a couple of short YouTube clips, which the link is at the back of this presentation. And one of those YouTube clips is a number of students, international students, talking about what they have done to improve their employability. So it's students giving advice to students about employability. Another one is from employers talking about the value that the people that they have employed who are international students have brought to their organisation. So they're 3 to 5 minutes long, and they're fantastic resources that can be incorporated into what you are doing with communication skills with your students. Another reason, or other reasons why English communication skills are important for students, it's related to the investment that they or their parents have placed on their studies. Students are expecting a return on that. And if you look at QS, which talks about there's a little quote from QS from their most recent survey of university rankings, or if you look at research from iGraduate, if you have access to that, students rate employability as one of the key reasons for choosing a particular university to study at. So the quote there highlights that. That's taken out of an article from Pi News, which is related to a recent university ranking. The headline says Stanford tops employability rankings, but if you actually look at that article, you'll notice that some Australian universities are doing extremely well in that area as well, which is great. And it also provides some good resources for you to access to see what is being done that you may be able to incorporate into your programs. All right. My third question, what is your centre currently doing to assist students to become employable in the global marketplace? Again, if you can post comments in the chat function, and Sophie will share them.
Okay, a few of comments have come through now.
Yep.
Okay, so someone has said their centre organises regular workshops with their uni career advisors. They have after-class activities on business English, and they invite guest speakers as well. Another person has said their centre offers specialist courses in business and hospitality, and also internship programs for work integrated learning. They've commented that they could probably do more to integrate it into mainstream class activities.
Okay.
Someone said their centre provides a varied student engagement program that allows students to develop language skills outside the classroom and develop networks with peers from different cultural backgrounds. Someone said that Uni of Newcastle's Language Centre has a social program, same one. I think it's just a different person from the same centre.
Yep.
So they have their communication classes, impromptu working in groups and report writing as well.
Mm-hmm.
So someone else has said that at their centre, the assessments on their course are transferable to work situations.
Yep.
So, for example, PowerPoint presentations or seminar discussion presentations. Someone else has mentioned volunteering work, so encouraging students to get involved in volunteering work. Also recognising leadership roles displayed in the classroom and then outside of the classroom through an awards program.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And again, I think that's a lot of the stuff that I've found as well. Let me just see if I can get to the next slide. It sounds like those people actually prepared this slide.
Yep.
I have a question about the person who said showing the transferability of employability skills like through group work or presentations. So is that is that highlighted to the students that a learning outcome is developing an employability skill as well as the language skill? That would be my question. Or does the teacher just highlight that in the class that, you know, these presentations not only help you for university, but they'll help you when you're in the workplace?
Okay. Jeff, I think that question's directed to you. If you want to just type in your answer. Do you want to repeat the question, Kath?
So you said that you have assessments where there is a link between employability and the skill being assessed. So, for example, group work and presentation. Is that transferability highlighted as a learning outcome that doing oral presentations develops X employability skill, or is it something that's highlighted in classroom? So is it made explicit to the students that that is a transferable skill?
Yep, so it's highlighted by the teacher in class.
Yep.
Although it's not always made explicit.
Okay, all right. No, and I think that's really important. You know, the things that we're talking about, that we're doing with international students, pretty much any student requires developing their English communication skills for employability. Programs that I've worked with, sometimes they offer employability training, and it's open to all of their cohort, not just international students or not just domestic students. And it's interesting because sometimes the domestic students have exactly the same issues. They may not have grammar issues, they may, but there are other things like the intercultural issues. Often students, and this is something that we highlight with the people that I work with, that international students have that advantage of they've crossed cultures by coming into Australia. So every time they communicate, they're dealing interculturally. So they often have a lot more intercultural awareness. The other thing that students I know have problems with, regardless of whether they're international or domestic, is recognising the transferability of things that they're doing to their employment. So they might not include something on their CV, or they might not show that link clearly. And I'm not saying that that's our job to do that, but I think, as Jeff said, it's something that teachers often just do. Showing, you know, when we're preparing students for university, we relate what they're doing in class to what they will be doing in their studies, but also to how that may make them more employable, and I think that's fantastic. This slide basically highlights some current practice from different teachers that I've been talking to and people that were in the cafe that we ran last year. And again, I think maybe those people are online too. So social clubs, volunteering for credit, student leadership roles, and there are some fantastic examples of what different centres are doing. So student representative councils, I've seen even at high school level where the students organise graduations at each end of each term, and they run the whole show. So that's an incredible way of building communication skills and learning how to do group work and do presentations and building confidence. So all of those things are fantastic. I think too, and sometimes it's creating links between things that are happening in an organisation or a larger organisation. So, for example, at a university, the Language Centre provides all these services, and then there'll be a student association on campus that's doing something, and they're looking for someone to fill in a gap for training that they will provide. So I've done sessions with a lot of graduate students associations, and often my suggestion is to them to go back to the language centres to say, we need someone to help us with this or with a particular area. So learning, when we're preparing academic courses, we talk to faculty to find out what the needs are there. And I think also, and I think someone mentioned this, getting alumni back or getting students who have graduated back to help feed into the program and show students how to develop those things and the importance of developing those things. So again, dealing with the graduate student associations and finding out, or them finding out what they can gain from working with language centres is also very useful. So all of those suggestions are fantastic. And I'm not sure, Sophie, is there any way of capturing things that have come up in the chat? Does that get saved as well? Or?
Yep, so what I'll do is I'll just publish the answers after each question on the slide on our website with the recording.
Okay, that's fantastic, because I think they're great resources to have. Now, I just want to double check that I haven't double clicked. So my final question is, what do you think your centre can do better to empower students to function successfully in the global marketplace? And the reason I've put global marketplace is that the students who are coming to us to learn English are not necessarily looking to live in Australia forever. If they're going to return to their home country, they will be using, more likely than not, English to communicate, and they'll be working in an environment where they'll be communicating with people from a range of cultures. I just wanted to read a quote which is from an article by Lee Tran and Kate Gribble, let me just get it here. So it's giving the perspective of students, that students often hope to gain some local work experience to complement their degree in order to position themselves well in their home country or in the international labour market. So others are committed to returning permanently and contributing to their home country's development. This data is a little bit old, but I think it's worth sharing. Research indicates that between a half and 2/3 of international students returned home after graduation in 2012. So that's quite a lot of students returning home. So English is obviously important to them in order to function and to set themselves apart in the global marketplace as well. So that's the context to question 4. So again, if you can put some comments, if you have any, in the chat box, and Sophie will share them.
There's a few answers.
Yep.
So give students skills to know how to access important world economic news. Also be more explicit when we're teaching skills that are transferable.
Mm-hmm.
A few people have mentioned providing intercultural competency courses as part of the language training courses.
Yes. And I think, sorry to interrupt, I think I could be wrong that the Language Centre at the University of Adelaide.
Yes, it is.
That?
Yep.
Yes, so that's an example of really good practice, and I think they've presented on that possibly at English Australia.
Yeah, and there's actually an archive webinar that they did about their program on our website as well. But they rolled out intercultural competency training across all their English language courses, and the interesting thing is that it's run in mixed level groups as well, which they felt sort of mirrored the global workplace a little bit more as well. Yeah.
Okay, and that's great because I think in terms of resources, if you can draw on what other people are doing and doing well, I think that's fantastic, and then tailor it to meet the needs of your centre. So obviously those archives are a really good place to go to.
Yes. In terms of what centres can do better, someone has said to provide ongoing support, borrowing from the corporate world, and providing service past the point of purchase and using technology to facilitate this.
That's great.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good action research project. Sorry.
Yeah. If someone said that we could invite more guest speakers and also past students who now work locally, so alumni.
Yes. Yep.
Someone else has said offer more opportunities for students to work independently or as part of small groups to work on these skills without a lot of teacher guidance.
Yes. Okay. There's some fantastic suggestions there. And I just want to share a couple more. Obviously, I didn't click that one, or it's just a little bit slow. I'll try it again. Okay, the next slide is very shy, so I'll start talking about it. This, just so people know, oh good, it's come up. We are nearly done. Okay, so what I'm focusing on now is some strategies, but then also resources. So some examples of things I know. Obviously, I don't know everything that's happening across Australia with language centres, but these are some of the things that I've come across. So as I said earlier, partnering with student organisations. Also, I've been doing a lot of work partnering with different careers offices and, well, not the office, obviously, the staff in the office, working with them just slotting into an aspect because they deal with employability and a lot of the broader issues. Sometimes there's a gap there in terms of just dealing with the English language component of that. So, and I know that there are organisations and language centres that get the careers officers, the staff, into the ELICOS Centre to introduce them up front and try and incorporate them in their program. So there is that flow through once they get to university or to wherever they're heading. Again, as people have said, use your alumni and community groups. We've talked about this, explicitly show the transferability of an activity either through, and it's great when people come and give presentations through an employability mapping tool. No, I don't have an employability mapping tool, but there are lists of employability skills. I have a very probably 19th century version where it's just actually a Word document with employability skills, and yes, I'm sure there are other more sophisticated versions out there that people are doing. Learn from other institutions. So here I've just incorporated just two, but I know there are many other universities that are doing things. So the University of Newcastle has a program called iLead, and it's just being reviewed, and a new version called iLead Plus, which is a program for credit, I understand, that is that students can attend workshops and a range of different activities to build up a portfolio of employability skills. And in doing that, they're also doing in an ongoing fashion, developing their communication skills. Monash University has a great program called Let's Chat, which is peer-to-peer. I know Newcastle University, I think that social group that you were talking about earlier. So Let's Chat is domestic and international together, and they have a range of other things. There are language centres that I know that have quite strong employability programs. And again, I'm sorry, I don't know all of them. I've just highlighted a couple that I do know, just to show you of places that you can start to look at. As I said, University of Sydney, as I was researching, there was employability came up. One resource that I think is great is from University of Queensland. They have a MOOC on employability. So I'm just going to move onto the resources because I think I've actually put it there. It's not on this page, sorry. The University of Sydney Employability MOOC is a free massive online open course, and it has videos from academics, students, and employer perspectives. So it has videos with transcripts. So it's a great resource to use for skill practice, but also to give knowledge about employability. And they have, I think it's 4 pillars of employability that they talk about. So there are things you might be able to incorporate there. The slide we're looking at the moment refers to the Employability Symposium documents. So if you go to that link, I've just put the International Student Employability Guide there, but there's also the other guides available as downloadable PDFs. IEAA have a YouTube channel which just has a couple of YouTubes on it. The one that I've linked to here is the one that is by students talking about how they develop their skills. Why English Matters is a generic site. I think it's produced by TOEIC as opposed to TOEFL, but that's where I got the infographic from, so you might find some interesting things there. Graduate Outlook is just that Graduate Outlook report that I referred to, which is useful for information. As I said, university websites, that's the link to, this was specifically for science graduates. The other resource that is, I think, really good to connect with are the different state study hubs. So the example that I've given here is Study Melbourne. They have a program called, and I'm sorry, I don't know whether it's Live or Live. I think it's Live. I should know because I've spoken to the people. And this is what it stands for. If you look at the link, it has a range of activities and things that students can do. In Queensland, where I am based, we have a student hub, which has, this week in fact, it has a presentation for students on employability. They have English conversation every week, and it's a way to link with other students, and it's all free. I know that other states, University Study Adelaide has award-winning employability programs in place. So there are ample resources out there that you could either tap into, maybe link up with people and get them to come and talk to your students, or if you're looking for students who have been successful in the community, these are really good places to access them. And as I said, I'm sure people know others as well. This is the massive online open course from UQ, so that's the link to that. The disclaimer is I have no relationship with any of these particular universities or places that I'm pushing. I'm not pushing, I'm mentioning. It's just resources that I've found to be useful. This one here, I just found, it's actually from TAFE Western Australia, and it's just a link to employability skills for ESL students. So the context is TAFE and more likely to be migrants, but it's just an example of other resources that may be out there that you may find useful. And I don't think you need to read through these. These are just the references. Sorry, I don't really want to end with a black slide. I'll leave it with the references. So that's pretty much all that I want to cover. If anyone has any questions that they would like to ask in closing, that would be great. Otherwise, I will leave Sophie to wind up.
Okay, well, we might wait a minute or so just to see if anyone has any questions. You can type them in again. Comments are welcome as well.
And if there's something that I've referred to and you can't find the resource there, I'm happy to provide that for you. I'm sure I put my email on the front of the presentation, so please feel free to email me and I will make sure you are able to access the resource just in case I've mentioned it and not put it there.
All right, there are a lot of thank yous coming through for you, Catherine.
Oh, that's good. I really appreciate everyone's input. I know it's more challenging on a webinar, but I think the comments that people have made are really valuable. So it will be a great resource for you once you have finished. Yep. And if there's someone desperately you want to contact, I don't know how that works. You need to start talking to people at other PD events and say, "Did you say this on this webinar?" I'm not sure how else you can link up with people. Never mind. That's
the tricky bit with webinars, isn't it?
Yes,
but what I will do is everyone will receive a follow-up email, just as an automated email. On there, I'll put the website link to the slides and also to the recording of today's session. And on the slides, you'll be able to see people's comments without any names included unless the institution has been included in the comment, so that there's a record of that there.
That's great.
Okay. Well, I don't think there's any questions for you, but there are certainly a lot of thank yous and thanks for the comprehensive presentation. So, yeah, I'd also like to thank you, Catherine. It was really interesting to get some insight into the research in this area of employability. And also, I think everyone will agree you shared a myriad of very, very useful resources for people to go away and have a look at. So thank you very much. And thank you to everybody for attending today's webinar as well.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. Thanks, Sophie, for coordinating it so well too.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Oh,
yes.
I'd just like to thank ETS TOEFL as well. Yeah, for
okay.
for their time and your time. Thank you.
Not a problem. Okay, great. Thanks, Sophie.
Bye.
Bye.